Hey, welcome to Cairo Business RX. It's Dr. Gary Rademacher here from the Business Academy, and with me is Quentin Terpstra, who is a co-owner at the Business Academy. And today, Quentin, I wanted to talk about this thing called exchange.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So at the Business Academy, one of the concepts we talk about is like there's 4 levels of exchange, and maybe you can discuss the 4 levels of exchange, and we can talk about how that applies to you being in your practice, or you purchasing something,
Sure,
or you doing service with someone else.
Yeah.
Like, how do you use these levels of exchange to dictate who you work for or work with in the future?
Right. So, so the bottom level of exchange would be criminal exchange, right? Okay. So you buy an investment into something, and the person who was taking the money for the investment didn't disclose all of what that looked like, and you're out the money that you put into that investment. I think that's kind of all too common, right?
Yeah.
So what would criminal exchange? So somebody buys a service in your practice, and they don't get any of the service out of it. Like nothing that comes back from that.
Well, great example of that would be, what's your refund policy in your office? Let's say a patient comes in and pays for a 24 visit care plan or a 12 visit care plan. And let's say they only come in 5 times and they move. And your policy is you don't give refunds. And so that patient leaves, how are they feeling? Like they paid for 12 visits and they only got 5.
Right.
How is that patient going to think of you or feel about that if they move and you don't give them a refund?
So you're going to get bad reviews there, hopefully.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're going to have, you're going to have other problems with people like that. And you're probably not going to be that busy or productive as an office because, as you say, they paid for something and got nothing.
Exactly. So that would be an example of criminal exchange.
Yep. Like that would be a criminal exchange.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's another level?
So then the next level up from criminal exchange is partial exchange, right? They paid for something, and what they got back, they got something back, but they didn't get back what they paid for. So we see that sometimes in terms of, a patient comes in and they were supposed to get this long, treatment of care, and a provider was out sick and a machine wasn't working, or something else wasn't happening in that office. And therefore, they didn't get what they wanted from the care there, and therefore they also didn't. Let's say they finished a care plan, and they felt like they got a 10 or 20% improvement.
Sure.
Right. They got something, but are they going to refer anybody to your office?
Yeah. True. Yeah. You got a couple things, but not all of it. Right. You didn't get the complete thing you were thinking you were going to get. So it's also like setting up expectations. If you're going to tell a patient you're getting 5 services and they only get 3, or I've seen it before where they were ordered orthotics because let's say they have a lower back problem, but they have a kinetic chain issue. They maybe have arches that are collapsing. They get ordered orthotics. They get the chiropractic. They get the rehab. They're on a 4-month like a 4 to 6 week treatment program. You get to week 5 and, the patient's sitting there going, hey, am I going to get orthotics? Right. And you're like, you're thinking, I completely forgot. Like that's poor exchange.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The patient had to remind you that they purchased something.
Right.
Okay. That makes sense.
So that's partial exchange. And that's, it's all too common. And then eventually what I see with offices that are doing a partial exchange or something like that, they don't expand. They kind of, dribble along and they struggle, and that's where they go with that.
Yeah.
And the next level up of exchange would be fair exchange, right? Fair exchange means a person paid for something and they got what they paid for.
Okay. Yep.
And that's typically considered to be good business.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I look at society today. When you look at the different businesses, the different transactions, the restaurants you go to, the investments that you make, the coaching programs that people may do. Where would you say, in your opinion, that average exchange is at? I know we haven't talked about the top level exchange yet, but it brings up a good point when you said fair exchange. Like I just don't feel like people are going up and above in servicing people anymore.
Right. And so what you're seeing is somewhere between, fair exchange and partial exchange.
Yeah.
Is where we're going with that. And when you get everything that you asked for or that you paid for, too often you feel like, oh, okay, good. Well, at least I got what I paid for.
Yeah.
But it's not, going home and singing their praises to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And going out and, all the, whatever, it's just sort of, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And if we look at that, there's a lot of factors in customer service in business, in the personal touch, in the different things like that. The fair exchange would be, okay, so, you bought, your new Apple phone, you got your new Apple phone. And here it is, it's in the box. And Apple does a great job at packaging things up. But even Apple these days, they used to give you a charger and another cord and a this and whatever in that box. And the last time I bought a phone, I had the phone and I had a cord, didn't even have something to plug it into the wall, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going, well, I bought my phone and that's what it is. And okay, that's what I got.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like Steve Jobs, when he was at it, was like, let's make this really sexy and make that sleek and the line's different and then we'll put this in there and then we'll, and the customer service kind of came up with that even more. And that's just kind of gone down to where that's gone to then.
Sure. And I would agree with you. And then the top level of exchange.
So that would be, so we call that exchange in abundance. And by the way, we teach the Hubbard Management System at the Business Academy, and all of these levels of exchange are taught in our training and come from Hubbard. But that's exchange in abundance. So exchange in abundance is you went in, you bought something, and you got so much more back that it was just like, wow, this is outrageous. Now, that doesn't mean the person comes in and buys a 12-visit plan and you give them 36, right? But what it does mean is that your exchange from the practice is, you were right there on time all the time. You had a personal communication with the person to really help them to, understand what they were doing. Maybe they got orthotics or they got a brace or something like that, and you fitted it and made sure it was absolutely perfect for the patient. As they're going into something, you're putting more education and more exercise and at home and different things that you didn't even talk about in what you were selling with it, that the patient feels like, wow, I got so much more out of it. And typically your patient does so much better from that, and they're going out and now they're singing your praises and they're bringing you referrals and all sorts of things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so like for those of you watching this right now, I mean, when you have a great experience with the business, don't you typically go and sing their praises to other people? Like, oh yeah, like when something is just up and above, like you're talking about it, like whatever that might be. I remember, we used to have a policy in my office where we always called the patient after their first adjustment. Always. Without fail, we always did it. And it was a 60-second to maybe 2-minute phone call max. And it was really just like, hey, just call to check in on you, see how you're doing from your adjustment. And having a dialogue on it. And I'd always end with like, listen, 80% of the time people feel better. 10% of the time, no change. And another 10% of the time, you might feel worse. That's okay. I'd let them know that ahead of time. So regardless of what happened, it would meet an expectation.
Right.
Right. But how many times does a doctor call the patient that same day? Or when the patient comes in, you go to the front desk and you greet them as the provider. You don't wait for them to come back. You go to them and you greet them. There's so many different ways that you can exchange in abundance, but what I see in today's society is there's very little exchange in abundance going on. It's become, to your point, very fair exchange or poor or partial exchange. And we've gotten used to that. So now more than ever before, it's become easier to really stand out. And that's when people start singing your praises and talking about, hey, the office I go to or the chiropractor I see, it's all based on there's this give mentality from the owner of that business where they are just exchanging in abundance with their environment. And when you create that exchange in abundance, to me, that's when opportunities just come a knocking, right? Like doors just start opening up, patients start coming out of the woodwork. And it's really because you're telling, for a lack of better words, the universe, like, I'm open for business and I'm here to help people.
Right.
And I'm going to help them in such a way that I'm going to be in type 4 exchange. And if I do that to me, that's how a referral practice is built.
Well, it really does. And you hear it in different things. People will say things like, I feel like family when I come here. Everybody knows my name when I come here. They addressed all of the concerns that I have when I come here. This sort of a thing. People are looking for that type of a service. And honestly, chiropractors do it so much better than the medical community does it already, those sorts of things. Now, the more that you take that up a notch, the more that you can really go in and give more and all that you're doing with that, that's where you get the patients who, I know many of our practices down in the South, they'll bake them a cake and bring it in when they come in for treatment.
Yeah.
That sort of.
Yeah. So, that's just an example of the 4 types of exchange. Like if you own an office and you're serving patients, but let's look at it from a different viewpoint. At the Business Academy, we're not just a consulting, we're consultants. We're a training company.
Right.
Which we're the only training company in the industry where we train you to actually be the best coach and that's yourself by learning, right?
Right.
And so, I had many different consultants before I joined the Business Academy. I'm a partner today, but I was a client first. And I remember, I always learned something from everyone I worked with. However, when I joined the Business Academy, it was just a complete shift in what I had experienced in the past. I can 100% say the money that I invested into teaching by taking courses and working on myself, I felt like that was type 4 exchange to me because I learned how to actually do something on my own and was taught how to apply it so that I could actually go out into the world, the workforce, and produce. Whereas other consultants that I had, it would be like raw weekends, a weekend workshop or seminar, and I wouldn't get any really tangible tools.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's good that anything that you do, even in hiring coaches, you look at what type of exchange are you getting? Is it poor? Is it criminal? Is it fair? Is it type 4? I've had all 4 of those types of exchanges with coaches that I've hired. And I always have a coach because I've always felt in my life, there are people, I'm not the smartest person in the room ever, right? Typically, like I want to surround myself with people smarter than me. And, you can't be the best at everything. So I hire coaches in different areas of my life. And there's been times when I've hired coaches before and it's criminal exchange. Like I put a lot of money into their organizations and lost money
right.
to where I felt like it was stolen. Right. And hopefully none of you have experienced that, but I have. But I've also been with organizations that coaches that have exchanged in abundance. They've gone the extra mile with me and have helped me to get to levels I never thought that I would.
Well, and to your point, yesterday talking to an old client of ours, and he had started out with the Business Academy. His practice was doing about $300,000 a year, which, by the way, is about the average chiropractic office, about $300,000 a year.
Yeah.
Within 3 years, the practice went to about $850,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all chiropractic. So you look at, we look at numbers like that. Obviously, that's a lot more patients being helped, a lot more patients through care in that office. And, we trained on report of findings, we trained on front desk, we trained on executive systems, we trained on a lot of that. And this client had done all of that work with us, was coming back to work with us again. And, one of the exchanges that we have is if you train on a course with us, you can come back and do that training again at any time. So here it is 5 years later, and he's continued to expand, not at the same clip as what he was expanding at before, but he's continued to expand.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's excited that, wow, what I learned about before, what I trained on before, I can come in, I can refresh on that, I can refresh on those tools, and certainly want to do more training and more tools, but I can refresh on those tools and come up to where we're going with that. And now that client wants to get up, his practice up to, a much, much bigger practice than what that is right there. And that is what we strive for on our exchange in abundance. How can we help you? How can we do more? What else can we do that really kind of goes into that point there?
Yeah. I think a few other points on this topic is not just what you're getting out of something when you look at these 4 types of exchange, but like I look at it from a client's perspective. If we're working with someone, or if I'm a client and I'm hiring someone, right? What's my level of exchange? What am I putting into that coaching?
Yeah.
Like, am I being criminal to myself by not putting my all into whatever I hired this person to do for me? Right. Oh, is it partial? Is it poor? Is it fair? Is it exchange? Like, if I take a piece of information that a coach is teaching me and I go all in on it, and I put the reps in mentally on scripts or on whatever it is they're teaching me, and I go type 4, I'm going to put that time into it. I know I'll get 10x money out of what I put into it. Right. And so there has to be some type of gut check. Like, am I actually exchanging with people around me and my coaches? If I hire someone, I need to be in type 4 exchange with them.
Well, I think you're totally right. And I think that all of the different aspects of this, and frankly, this subject applies to all aspects of your life. As you're talking, I'm thinking of my kids,
Yeah.
If my kid is just getting things and is not doing chores, is not doing things to help, is not whatever, then you're going to make a criminal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And, and there's too many in society that haven't made somebody really come up to that to exchange back. And then if they're partial exchange, but if my son goes and does something and he really takes it on and he exchanges in abundance and he does what he does and he does the project that I gave him and he goes the extra mile with it, man, the look of satisfaction on his face is just, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And all that you get out of that. And so where you go with that, it's just, it's that great thing. So the more that we can get every single employee doing that in a practice, we do that with our clients. The more that our clients do that with their patients, the more that we exchange in that way, mm-hmm. the more success there's had for everybody.
Absolutely. So listen, I think the key thing here is that in today's society, there's not this type 4 exchange that's occurring like there used to be. And so it's much easier to stand out when you are in exchange with your environment.
Yep.
Like, you are the cause, right, of the effect that's coming in. And the more that you are giving and the more that you're exchanging with your environment, the more that's going to come back to you, and you'll actually stand out. So at the Business Academy, our intention is always to be in type 4 exchange with our clients and our customers. And we've been around a long time. And I think that's why we've been around a long time.
Right.
It's been 25 or so years. And so, listen, I really love this concept. If you guys have any feedback on that, we'd love to hear from you. But I do encourage everyone to really think through the types of exchange that you have. What's your type of exchange with your employees in your office? Like, what's your exchange with your family? I'm guilty of, for years, putting so much time into my business, I neglected, family.
Sure.
And you neglect something long enough, you're going to have problems, in any area of your life. So, what type of exchange are you in? So it's a gut check question for you. Like, what type of exchange am I with my employees, with the business, with my community, with, my family, with the coaches that I'm hiring, or for that matter, for anything that you're doing. So, I think this is a great topic.
It's something that pervades any business and is very applicable right now in the current economic climate too.
Yeah, totally agreed. So, hey, thanks for joining us today on this podcast. I love this topic. We look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. Until then, have a great day.